yeah, sometimes I just need a break. So I ran away to the woods. I love it. How many of you are parents? Okay, there's a few of you out there, right? So you know you're not perfect. There's a thought. There's Nala. You're not perfect, right? Neither am I. No one thinks I'm perfect. By now, you definitely know I'm not perfect. And if you ever thought, I know no one ever thought I was perfect. So that's beautiful, that's wonderful, and that's reassuring to me that everyone knows. But yeah, not perfect, plenty of parenting fails on my part. And so I asked the boys if I could share some of the parenting fails with you guys, because I thought, well, maybe they're kind of embarrassing for the boys and they don't want me to share them with the general public. But the kids were like, no, we don't care, Mom. I'm sorry, there's a cat down here that I keep playing with. They're like, no, we don't, it's not on us, it's really on you. And I was just like, dude, that's really true. So they are now 20 and 15, and they're very confident young men, so none of these stories are gonna bother them. When Jackson was little, he was probably about 2 years old, because we hadn't gone to Germany yet, so we were still in California. 2 years old, couldn't put on his own shoes yet. I mean, that's typical for a little 2-year-old, right? And so I put his shoes on. We had to go to the BX real quick. The BX is like a Walmart on a military base. And so we had to go there real quick. So we were gonna hop into the BX and hop out real quick. Got him out of, so I put his shoes on, got him out of the Explorer, and he kept like being goofy. So I picked him up, I scooped him up in the parking lot, and we walked inside the BX. Well, he started squirming and wanted to walk. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. So we're walking through the BX, and he kept walking all goofy, like all pigeon-toed, and then he'd like just swerve around, and like he's walking like he was drunk. And I thought he was just goofing around. I said, you know, Jackson, quit it. We need to get in, get out, quit messing around, quit screwing around. And he kept doing it. And I kept getting more and more stern with him, like, stop, Jackson, quit it, you know, walk right. More than once I said, walk right. And I didn't yell, but I mean, very sternly. And a couple times I did, there's a lady that was like shopping around us, and she gave me this like really bad look, like this really judgmental, you're a horrible mother look. And I would just remember thinking, okay, judgy woman, don't you judge. If anything, you should help me out. I mean, if you're a mom, you should be helping me out right now, not judging me. And so she gave me these really nasty looks. And so Jackson kept doing that. And so finally we get all checked out and everything like that. And we're walking out. There's like a food court outside the BX. And we're walking out, and I notice his shoes are on the wrong feet. And this kid, like I said, he cannot put on his own shoes at that age. And so I put them on, and I put them on the wrong feet. So he was walking all goofy because his shoes were like pointed out like that. He couldn't walk right. So tripping over his own feet, couldn't help it. And so I'm like, oh, Jackson, I am so sorry. So I'm like apologizing profusely to a 2-year-old, and he's just like laughing at me like, ah, mama, this is weird. And so I stop and I put him in a little bench thing that was there. I switched his shoes, and right when I was switching his shoes and apologizing profusely, the lady walks by, and she was just like, yeah, that's right, that's what I was talking about. And I was just like, I didn't say it to her, but I should have said, why didn't you tell me? I mean, why didn't you tell me? And so I felt so bad, horrible. Like and this is my first kid. I only had him for 2 years, and I was like, already I am screwing this child up. So yeah, let's stick with the footwear, but move on to a different child. So Gunnar, who is now 15 years old, one day he was getting ready for a whitewater rafting trip with and I'm just petting my cat, with the youth group from church. And I was reading like the whole waiver and permission form and everything like that, and what you need to bring. And I saw that you need to bring like shoes that are tight or are secure, that tie tightly. And he always walked around with his shoes just loose, like the laces all loose, which is totally understandable because I always did that. My feet are like claustrophobic, so I like loose. I like sandals. I don't like my shoes real tightly tight, so I wear loose laces a lot too. And he's always worn loose laces, so that made sense. When he was little, he wore Velcro, so on and so forth. So I was reading that. I said, okay, Gunnar, when you're on your trip, make sure you tie your shoes really tight. Don't keep them loose like you always have them. And he looks at me and he's like, I don't know how to tie my shoes. This was 2 years ago. The kid was 13. And not even kidding, he looks at me, Mom, I don't know how to tie my shoes. What do you mean you don't know how to tie your shoes? He's like, well, you never taught me. And I'm thinking, not my job, not it. This can't be on me. Kevin was a stay-at-home dad when Jackson, the oldest, was like in kindergarten, and when Gunnar was just a baby. And so Kevin taught Jackson to tie his shoes, which is, you know, you learn that when you're 4 or 5, 6 years old, whatever. So I didn't have to worry about it. Kevin did all that. So I assumed, even though Kevin's not a stay-at-home dad anymore, I'm the stay-at-home mom for Gunnar when he was in kindergarten and until now. I assumed, though, I think rightly, that Kevin would teach Gunner how to tie his shoes because he had done it so well with Jackson. So why wouldn't he teach Gunner how to tie his shoes? Well, of course, Kevin assumed I would teach Gunner how to tie his shoes because I was a stay-at-home mom, I was homeschooling, and it just made sense that that would fall to me. We never talked about it. He never verified that I did. I never verified that he did. And so our son fell through the cracks. A child was left behind in the shoe tying department, and Barbara Bush would not be happy with me. Oh no, that wasn't Barbara Bush. That was Laura Bush, wasn't it? The No Child Left Behind. Or was that Barbara Bush? I'm gonna have to get my history right. Anyways, I think it was Laura Bush. And so, anyways, the child was left behind in the shoe tying department. And I was just like, oh, Gunner, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And he's like, well, why can't you just teach me how to tie my shoes real quick? So, of course, the only way that I ever remember learning how to tie my shoes was like something with a bunny, goes around a tree, through a hole, so on and so forth. And so I started doing that with him. I'm like, okay, go get your shoes. I was like, okay, here's the bunny, here's the tree. The bunny goes around the tree, through the hole, and then the ears. And he was just like, what are you talking about? I'm not getting it. And so I was just like, well, this isn't gonna work. So I said, isn't there a YouTube video with like this hack on how to tie your shoes in like a second? And it's super easy. So we looked it up, and sure enough, we found the video. And so we went through it together, and let me just tell you, you have to be like some sort of weird Houdini to use that hack. It does not work. So another fail, we could not figure it out with that video. And I know how to tie, so then I'm just like wanted to show him how to do it, but it was, for him remembering, it was just weird, and I wanted to have like something, it was just a horrible, horrible day of trying and trying and trying and trying. And then finally he found a video he liked or whatever, and he just kept doing it and doing it, and within like a couple hours he had it no problem, with me just stepping back and being like, okay, I can't obviously teach this. This is why Kevin taught it. So he learned how to tie his shoes, and he can now, so it's no big deal, but he was 13 years old, okay? So if you're feeling bad about, you know, having your kid know the basics of life, my kid was 13 when he learned how to tie his shoes, so you win on that one. Another of the basics, potty training, right? A lot of people are like, they blame parents if the kid's not potty trained by like whatever, 2 or 3. They're like, oh, we've got a book, potty train in 24 hours or less. It's miraculous. You know what? If the kid's not ready, the kid's not ready. And I was all about, like, I free range parented before it was cool. I was all about that life. And so I was like, my kids will learn potty training when they're good and ready. I don't want to be potty trained. I don't want to be on pins and needles all the time if they're not wearing a diaper, just wearing regular pants and underwear, that they're going to have an accident because I haven't asked them 15 times in a minute if they had to potty, and get them to the bathroom every 2 seconds to potty. They'll figure it out, and they'll let me know, or I'll be able to tell when they're ready. Well, 3 years go by, and my kids are still in like pull-ups, both boys. I mean, 5 years apart, but this happened to both of them because I refuse to be potty trained myself. Like I want to give them like the body autonomy kind of thing where they could do it on their own. And so both kids were like almost 4 years old. I don't know how we got away with it with Gunner. Jackson was at home and then with Kevin, so it wasn't as big a deal, but Gunner was in daycare. I was in the Air Force, Gunner was in daycare. So we must have had, I know we had the most amazing daycare provider ever because she let us get away with him being in pull-ups for a long time. But Jackson actually self-potty trained, and they both self-potty trained right before their 4th birthday, maybe into their 4th birthday, I'm not sure. They both self-potty trained. They just said one day, I'm gonna go potty, and then it was it. It was done, and they're like no accidents or anything like that. So it was that, you know, just like, you know, black and white. But anyways, Jackson learned through the dogs. We were in Germany. We had 2 big German shepherds, and we let them out to go potty. And Jackson, like little Mowgli from the Jungle Book, he would go with them, and he would go, and we lived in the middle of the country, so nobody saw, but he would go out and he'd pee with the dogs. I'm not even kidding. Like, he didn't lift his leg or anything weird like that, but he would go out and pee like against a tree with the dogs. And so the dogs taught Jackson potty training, and it was wonderful. Then all we had to do is redirect, you know. We don't go outside anymore, although there were so many times, like every opportunity he had to pee outside, he did. But we just had to redirect slightly where this is the new place. I think we called the toilet a tree for a while for him or something, and he got that, no problem. But so, yeah, people gave me such a hard time that my boys were so late in potty training, and I don't care. I really don't care. So if your kid is 3 years old and still not potty trained and you're fine with it, you be fine with it, and it's not a big deal. Trust me, you're wasting your money on training pants, diapers, and pull-ups and stuff because those are expensive. So yeah, you're dumping a lot of money away. But I mean, I'm telling you, I don't know how those moms do it who are just constantly like, are they gonna have an accident? Like worried all the time that their kid's gonna have an accident. I couldn't live that way. But I mean, a lot of people, whatever, you do you on the potty training. Completely you do you on the potty training. And I'll do me. And my boys will go out and pee with the dogs. So they don't do that anymore. We're good. Here's another parenting fail that is just steeped in selfishness. Complete and utter selfishness. I wanted a goat. I desperately wanted a goat. We had just moved to our hobby farm. It just seemed like the dream to get a goat, right? That you start your goat herd. So I told my son that for his 12th birthday, I said, you should really want a goat. Like, why don't you want a goat? Do you want to? I showed him pictures of goats. I showed him videos of cute little goats. I'm like, don't you want a cute little baby goat? And the minute he said, maybe, I don't care. I was like, oh, he wants a goat. So I ran to my house and I said, Kevin, Jackson wants a goat. Jackson wants a goat. So Kevin's like, okay, well, if that's what he wants for his birthday, we're in an area now, we have a farm, we can do that for our kids. Yeah. Jackson did not want a goat. It was me that wanted the goat, but under the pretense of my son, hi Fuzzy Bear, under the pretense of my son, like me talking my son into wanting a goat, I got our first goat, Elliot, and we still have him. Elliot's 8 years old now. That's crazy, but Elliot is like the best goat ever. We still have him, and I love him. Fuzzy says, hi ladies and gentlemen. Hi Fuzzers, how are you? Oh yes. But yeah, so I got our first goat because of Jackson. I love you, son, but not a great parenting moment for me. Oh, speaking of Jackson, we were going to karate one time. We were in Nebraska, so he was 5 or 6 years old, and I got pulled over for speeding. And you know how the officer comes to your window, license, registration, and then he takes it back to his car to like look everything up. While he was gone, oh, I'm not proud of this. I am not proud of this. And this was before I was a Christian, before I was a believer. I had no problem lying. It was so bad. I was so bad. I feel bad about this. I told Jackson, I said, when the cop comes back, I want you to start crying and saying, don't take my mommy to jail. I'm not even kidding. I did that. I told Jackson, when he comes back, start crying like big tears and tell him that you don't want him to take your mommy to jail. And I was just like, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I know now it is, oh, that was horrible. That is not good. Like, that's like borderline seriously not good, Jenna. Not even borderline, that's seriously not good, okay? And so, hi Nala. Nala says, hi. We have a, yes, long-haired German Shepherd here. Oh, Nala's birthday video is coming up. I'm so excited for that. Anyways, Nala, stop. She's like putting her head into me. I love you, but move. So the cop comes back and, oh, he did it, you guys. He started crying and he's like half crying, half laughing. Like, it was not very convincing, but the cop maybe thought that he was just, I don't know, special needs or something, because it was really bizarre, but he did get the words out, don't take my mommy to jail. And I think the cop just felt so bad. Like, I have no idea what was going through that cop's mind, because it was just a weird play out of emotions / it was just weird. It was just weird. But I did not get a ticket. I got a warning. I was just like, oh, and to this day, I feel bad about that. That was a legit parenting fail. Do not do that, parents. That's not good. And Jackson still remembers that. Jackson was my poor trial baby for parenting fails. He fell off. We had like one of these captain's beds for him that was up, probably about like 4 feet up, and he fell out of it and broke his collarbone. We didn't know he broke his collarbone, but he fell out of it and he was crying. And so I ran to his room real quick and I scooped him up and put him in our bed, because I'm like, you know, I didn't know what was wrong. And when I scooped him up, he just screamed. And I didn't know, I was just like, ah! And so I put him in our bed and he just was crying. And I said, well, let's just wait till the morning to take you in. I should have taken him to urgent care right then and there, because they could have given him some painkillers or something. But took him the next day, and here he had broken his collarbone from that fall out of his tall bed. And so I felt so bad, number one, that I didn't have like a guard up or anything like that on the bed. But he was like, was this in Nebraska? Yes, this was in Nebraska as well. So he was probably like 6 years old. And he had never fallen out of bed ever before, even when his bed was down low. So I didn't think we need anything like that. But when you have high beds, taller beds, put a guard on them always, parents, so that the kid doesn't roll out. But so I felt so bad. And then, oh my goodness, just a few years ago, Jackson was probably about 12, and he was at basketball. And well, we were at a co-op, a homeschool co-op, and I was teaching a cooking class, and he was in a gym class playing basketball. And I guess, I don't know, if something happened or whatever, and he comes into my cooking class, and he's got like the slump. He's got like the I broke my collarbone slump. I mean, it's just obvious. You can tell by looking at someone usually if they broke their collarbone just by the slump, you know. And so he comes in, he's like, I did something, it hurts really bad. And I said, oh, dude, you broke your collarbone. He might have been older. He might have been, no, I think he was 12. And I said, oh, you broke your collarbone. I'm like, it's obvious. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, wait till I finish this class real quick. We're almost done. I'll clean up, and then we'll take you to urgent care. I said, there's going to be nothing they can do for you, but we'll take you anyways, and we'll get it checked out. It'll be fine. Don't worry. Just go sit on the bleachers and wait for me. So he goes and he sits on the bleachers, and about 10 minutes later, his brother comes in, and he's just like, Jackson's not looking too good. He looks really pale, and he says his arm hurts really bad, and he doesn't feel good, and he wants to go. And I said, well, just give me, I was cleaning up after the class. It's like, just give me 2 minutes, and we'll head out of here in just a second. I just kept saying, just tell him it'll be okay. Give him this water. Tell him it'll be okay, and just tell him to relax. I knew he was just kind of stressing out. Not my best parenting moment either. But so about 10-15 minutes later, I walk out to the bleachers, and about 45 minutes had gone by from the first time he had come in to say his shoulder hurt to when we actually left. So I mean, that poor kid was sitting on the bleachers for 45 minutes with just a broken collarbone. And so I get to him, and I was like, okay, let's go ahead and head to the urgent care. And the whole time I'm like, you know, hey, it's broken. There's not gonna, just so you know, there's not gonna be anything they can do for it. Just rest, recuperation. And it was this one. I said, just rest, recuperation, you know, it'll be okay. I said, they'll probably give you some painkillers. It'll be all right. And so we get to the orthopedic surgeon place, and they did some x-rays and stuff like that, and he broke it good. I mean, it was broke. And she comes back in, the doctor comes back in, she's like, oh yeah, she's like, she shows us on the x-rays, and I was just like, I told you, I said that to our son. I did, and I told you to a poor kid that had broken his collarbone. I did, and I told you so. I mean, people, I'm a monster. I am an absolute monster. This kid, the therapy he's going to be going through someday, and he still reminds me about this, the collarbone thing, that I made him sit on the bleachers, and that I did the I told you so. And I don't even know how it came out of my mouth. Like, I can be horrible, absolutely horrible. And I was saying it like jokingly, but just, can you imagine to be in pain and then your mom to be like, I told you so, you know? Oh, it's horrible. I didn't say mean, I was just like, I told you so, like, I got you. But who does that to their kid? And but they were both, well, no, they weren't both happy. Oh no, this was a separate time, the popsicles. I'll tell you that in a minute. But yeah, I felt bad, and so, but he was fine, and he didn't even take the painkillers. I mean, that kid's tough as nails. Didn't even take the painkillers, and so it healed up. He's beautiful. It's fine. One time, this one, and this is partially not my fault, other than I probably should have been more attentive to my kids. Always, I guess, right? So we get to pick up, let's see, Gunnar would have been 5, and Jackson was 10, and he was going to public school. This is last year, I think, in public school. And we were going to pick him up, and we get to the office because I had to drop something off at the office first. So we walk into the office, and Gunnar's like on a chair, and he slides off the chair, and his shirt comes up a little bit. And I noticed something like black in his belly button, and I was just like, what is that? And so I said, Gunnar, come here. And so I looked up, and here he has a tick in his belly button. And he was 5, so he was old enough to be able to be like, you know, days ago or whatever, Mom, there's something in my belly button, I don't know what it is. And so I asked him, I said, you know, Gunnar, he might have been 6. I said, Gunnar, you know, when did this get in your belly button? And he's like, oh, it's been there a couple days. I didn't know what it was. So I probably should have been more attentive to, like, I don't know, how do you catch that in your son if he's bathing on his own, changing on his own, very self-sufficient? How would you even catch that, you know? And so I said, oh, honey, you know, we need to take care of that. But I didn't have anything there in the school office. And so, and I didn't want to wait till we got home because it was starting to get like really red and stuff, like a ring around it almost. And so I'm thinking, oh, the boy has Lyme's disease already, right? Because he said it had been in there a couple days. And so, and the tick was big already. So I went to the school nurse right there, and I said, hey, you know, he's got this tick. Can you take it out? And she's like, well, he's not a student here. And I was just like, help a mom out. And so she tried to get it out, but she could only get like pieces of it out. She couldn't get the whole thing out. And so there were pieces stuck in still in his belly button. And he was, you know, he was a trooper with it, but I mean, it was painful for her to dig around. And finally she said, she's like, I can't get any more out. And I was worried about infection. I was still worried about the Lyme disease and everything. And I was still beating myself up that I hadn't noticed it for like days. So I call the insurance. I'm like, you know, is this an urgent care thing? Is this an emergency room thing? Is this a go tomorrow to the doctor thing? You know, what is this? It wasn't insurance. It was like our care line, our primary care line or whatever for our medical stuff. And so they said, go ahead and take him to the emergency room. And so because of the infection and stuff like that, they're worried it's already in his bloodstream or whatever. And so I said, okay, so we get to the hospital. They dug in his belly button with like the needle point tweezers and stuff like that. 2 techs or doctors, whatever they are in the emergency room. I don't think they were doctors. They might have been doctors. Anyways, 2 of them dug for 45 minutes in his belly hole trying to get that tick out. They finally got all of it out, and then he got a popsicle, like an Otter Pop afterwards, that him and Jackson got one that he was so happy about, and he said it was well worth it. But to this day, I'm just like, oh my goodness, how did I not notice a tick in his belly hole for days? Once again, I am the worst mother ever. It was, I mean, but I ask my boys now, I'm like, do you remember that stuff as like, I can't believe my mom was so horrible, or do you look back on it like it was kind of funny, or yeah, I asked them, I was like, how do you look on that stuff? And they're just like, we don't really think about it either which way. And then Jackson's like, except for the collarbone thing. He's like, that was messed up. But yeah, they're very forgiving. My sons are very forgiving, and they're just like very nonchalant about it all, about me being a horrible mom. So if you're having like a bad day, and it's one of those things where, yeah, you feel like you're failing all the time, I can almost guarantee you, I mean, there's some pretty bad fails that, yeah, you need to get your crap together. But in general, it's all good. It's all good. Check your kid's belly hole. If there's no tick in there, you're doing better than me. You guys have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.